What makes for a good leader? Hi, I'm Marcus Jackman. I'm the pastor at Copper Hills Church in Harriman, Utah. This is Gleanings, a series of devotions. Gleanings are feasting on God's Word in the margins of everyday life. I was considering this morning what makes a good leader, and I turned to our more modern-day oracle, Google, and just did a search, looked for the qualities of a leader. And you know what didn't show up? Hardly at all. Certainly not in the top 5 or top 10 of anything I saw at first. Humility. It's not high on the list. Brokenness, lowness, to be unfull of one's self does not seem to be a quality often called for in our leaders. And therefore, why would we expect to find it in our followers? Today is Maundy Thursday. It is the day when, and in John 13, as it describes, Jesus showed them the full extent of his love, and he began to enter into his sufferings, and he began that by washing the disciples' feet. He washed the disciples' feet. And if you look for foot washing anymore, you might find references to foot washing ceremonies or days of remembrance and specific events that were done to commemorate this and to reenact it and to try to take its lessons into our lives. Rarely do we see, however, foot washing as an example, as a heart attitude way of life. And yet that's exactly what Jesus calls us to. In John chapter 13, verses 12 to 17, Jesus says, when he'd washed their feet and put on his outer garments and resumed his place, he said to them, "Do you understand what I've done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you're right, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I've given you an example that you also should do just as I have done for you. Truly, truly, I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. If you know these things, blessed are you if you do them." What Jesus is urging the disciples on to here is not just to make a habit of washing feet as a particular action, but that their followership should resemble his leadership. A follower should resemble the leader. He said, if I am your Lord and your master, your teacher, and I am, then you also should do just as I have done for you. Our heart attitude of service, of humility, of lowness of heart should reflect Jesus's. Our heart should reflect Jesus's heart. And what does his heart look like? It looks like grace. It looks like service. It looks like humility. Instead, however, how often do we ask Jesus to be humble and resist humility ourselves? We want still to appear strong and worthy and respected by the world, as if it had something to offer me, as if it has anything to offer me that can compare with what Jesus gives. How often do we ask Jesus to be humble, but refuse humility ourselves? Whose feet are we resisting washing? Whose feet are we refusing to stoop to? Where and why? What is going on in my heart? And Jesus reminds his disciples, he says, if I have washed your feet, if I have done this for you, he says, if I have made you clean, then do these things. When I resist humility and when I resist being a good follower of his leadership style of lowness of spirit, when I resist that, it's in part at least because I have forgotten that he has already made me clean, that he has already, by his life and his death, his resurrection, he's already made me clean before God for forever. And so the foulness of any work, the appearance of worthlessness or failure, I don't need to fear any of those anymore, because Christ has given me all things. He now rules above for all time over all places. And he calls me to follow his example. He calls me to live in such a way that demonstrates and manifests his own heart toward me in my heart toward others. He calls us to do the same and to love well. It's Maundy Thursday, when Jesus called us conscientiously. He said, you also ought to wash one another's feet. Truly, truly, I say to you, blessed are you if you know these things and you do them. Let's do them today. Go in his grace and his peace in this Easter week. Pray that you will be encouraged by the knowledge that Jesus has already washed you and made you clean. So no service, no lowliness, no humility could ever take that away. Instead, you show the world what his heart is like to sinners like me and you. Bless you today.